Hello, everyone, and welcome to another RigER webinar. First things first, here's myself right there on the screen. My name is Nikolai, and I'm VP of Business Development here at RigER, and I will be hosting today's webinar. Feel free to follow us using any of the social media channels that are presented on the screen. So quite often, we are actively posting information about the latest news about the product, so do feel free to follow us. By the way, LinkedIn is very popular, has become and growing very popular in our community. So the topic of today's webinar, as you can see on the screen, is Go Digital in 2020. We understand that the year has started and many of you have started thinking, but then may have dropped that thought of changing a system and refining your processes. So here we are at the end of the first month and beginning of the month of February, where we'd like to tell you that it's not too late to start the transition from the old way of doing things using spreadsheets and paper forms into a digital format using RigER as your platform. So today we are going to talk about a number of items that relate to that topic. So the speakers of today's webinar are myself as Nikolai. You can see on the left-hand side, and Gleb Kovitz. We'll have a guest speaker as well, but he will be introduced as a cameo later on. So today's agenda is dedicated to a number of items that relate to how to go digital in 2020. So we'll talk about RigER in general, to those of you who don't know much about what RigER is. And then we'll dive into the operations management system and what it is designed for. Generally speaking, for anybody. We'll talk about the methodology of onboarding at RigER. And then dive a little bit into detail, how we run projects when we implement the system for our clients. So a little bit about us, to those of you, again, who have not been with us yet as a client or a partner of ours. Those of you who are clients and partners of ours, you can just step aside and get a cup of coffee. But in the meantime, I will just introduce who we are. So RigER is a flagship product of the Belkasoft. And here you can see the Belkasoft incomplete, but still pretty much what we are in a nutshell. As of today's, the Belkasoft companies are presented on one of these pictures. So we've won an award, which is very exciting as a software development company in North America in the past year. So that's a great news. And we're based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So we're North American based. And one of the core values and focus areas for us is the paperless enterprise, as well as the other one is the custom solutions, and the third one is integration. So that's how we contribute into the digitalization of the systems in the oil field industry. So what is RigER? Again, to those of you who don't know much about us. So it's a family of products and a platform at the same time. So I'll try to dissect that to make sure that it makes sense to you. So basically, RigER is a cloud-based oilfield platform which allows you to organize information in a database that is hosted in the cloud. So you have different modules that are connected and interconnected and bring different people and organization together. But RigER, not only the cloud system, it also has a mobile applications connected to that main cloud database. So basically, it's cloud to mobile platform that allows you to work both in the field and at the office. But on top of that, RigER is also a platform for the industry-specific applications. So we have now designed a specific application for the downhole tools, and it's a specific line of business of RigER. But at the same time, general applications of RigER include a number of surface equipment rentals that you can manage using RigER, and they're represented by different kinds of equipment, from telecom to the light towers to the disposal, the waste management, and other oilfield services that are part of the general oilfield services sort of industry, if you will. Okay. So again, our core focus, geographic focus area is North America as of today. However, we're expanding pretty rapidly. So there's news coming down the pipe later this year, so stay tuned. But the main office of ours in Canada is located in Calgary, and the main office of ours in the US is located in Houston. We have an extensive network of servers where we're hosting databases of our clients depending on where they're located. And our support desk is distributed between the European desk and the North American desk, as well as our software also distributed between North America and Europe. So if you don't see your logo on this screen, don't worry. We did not mean to put everyone's logo on the screen. It's just a feature of the latest clients of ours. However, there is always a space for you to put your logo on this slide. Just call us and make sure we can discuss what kind of needs you have to make sure that we can meet them using RigER. So these are the companies that have been using RigER. And on the right-hand side, you can see what kind of equipment these companies are tracking using our system that we set them, up for them. And these are all different kinds of oilfield service and rental companies. So you can be one of those on the screen. So you're more than welcome to call us at any time. And so since the intro is done, I wanted to dive into the operations management system as the first topic of our conversation today as part of the Going Digital in 2020 subject of the webinar. So what is the OMS? So it is Operations Management System. So I know that many of you have heard different types of acronyms, CMMS, ERP, and many others. So we would like to really differentiate many things from many things, and wanted to discuss that RigER is primarily an operations management system. It fits between ERP and focus specifically on the operations side. And what you can do with an operations management system such as RigER. So you can, and it's specifically designed for tracking every oilfield job and collecting all the details about that job. So from the prices to the locations to the kinds of equipment that you need to track. You can also manage clients and contacts, and all within the same system. So basically, you can see how that also can apply to the CRM aspect of interaction in the field. You can track prices, and again, it really crosses the boundaries of different functions in an organization, but still relates to the operations management. So from general prices to the client-specific prices in the prices agreement. So you get, with an operations management system, the full transparency of the dispatch activities. So it's key, and it's a primary function in the organization that requires a system that some of the software that are complex and expensive and long and hard to implement cannot deliver on, which RigER can. So you can do the dispatching RigER. You can retain full control of the operational processes and have the information in it and have it accessible when you have different people in the organization accessing information and need access to different parts of it. So what also RigER is, as an operations management system, is it allows you to manage people in the system and information about their skills and qualifications. And with an OMS as a system, you can have get really near real-time insight about your operations and operational information or data. So that was a mouthful. However, what I wanted to now focus on is what actually the Oilfield Operations made of that RigER is designed to support. So, and what we like to say when we talk to the clients is that RigER does a good job, or if not an excellent job, as our clients say, to manage the whole set of processes from the first client call to the final invoice. So basically that's in a nutshell what RigER is. And there's a different kinds of modules in the system that can be enabled and turned on, fine-tuned, and configured depending on what specifically you're looking for the system to be able to do for you. And like I mentioned in the previous explanation of the operations management system, we can manage everything from prices to safety and HR information, including the cost of operations in the system. So basically, it's a comprehensive Oilfield Operations management system that is right there for you, that we're going to be talking about how to implement for a new client. So what are the RigER modules? So RigER modules are presented on this slide, and you can see that they're made of different parts. And on that note, I wanted actually to have Gleb Kopets to comment a little bit on that as well. So can you just walk us through real quick, Gleb, and tell us what exactly are on the back end of RigER?
Sure. Thank you very much, Nikolai. Hello, everyone. This is Gleb Kopets. So as Nikolai said, RigER software consists of different modules. And actually on that big flowchart, you are seeing the different interconnections between different documents in the system. So that's why it's quite important to understand that in order to implement the system properly to the business operations, we need to understand all small pieces of the whole puzzle. And we need to understand also the connections between different kind of operations branches in the company. That's why we allocate different documents into modules, and these documents are connected to each other inside of the module, and sometimes we have even interconnections between different modules, so information flows from one document to another one, despite of the nature of operations. So we are trying to keep the database consistent and compliant with all the small pieces of details that employees can input into the documents, and actually that represents what I'm talking about is in the best way. Now, a few words about the implementation goals that we are trying to achieve and we usually achieve when we do the implementation project. And first of all, it should be fast, right? So you don't want to wait for 6 or 12 months until the new system will be implemented in your organization, and also implementation of a new software always involves the other people, and also involves it increases the number of jobs and number of operations that you do, because you have to maintain your current systems and current documents that you do. In the same time, you need to implement these new approaches into new software, so it's double work for some employees. Also, one of the main goal of the whole software philosophy is to go paperless. Like you want to use modern technologies and on different devices. The digital technologies and software gives you transparency and accountability of what different people do, and how the information flows from one person to another one, and you keep all this information in one database. The other goal is to connect office and field personnel. Since we are digital nowadays, we want to do our job on the fly, on the go, and that's why you don't have to be connected. You don't have to sit in the office in order to perform your jobs and your duties. You also can do and want to do that on the go, on the mobile devices. And definitely we keep the organization together in terms of the people and different resources. So everyone can work in the same system and communicate within one big source of information. And definitely implementing and achieving all these goals lead you to the be a leader of the market, on the market. And sometimes our clients, they are also improve the technology by suggesting a new approaches to the software development and putting a new vision of what should be maintained and tracked in the software. So on that note, let's switch the gears and go deeper to the onboarding methodology of RigER software. And I'm going to show you how we switched recently the methodology, and it became definitely better in terms of the management, the implementation project, and in terms of the transparency for our clients during the implementation project. So first of all, just a few words about the general implementation methodology, because despite the fact that different companies in the oil field sector operates pretty much the same operations and equipment, but all these companies are doing their business differently, because that becomes a competitive advantage, how the company do their operations. And in order to understand how you perform your operations, we usually do the pre-implementation consulting, like we call it, because that gives us understanding on your specific operations and your specific processes. So we assess how you do your business, what are your processes, how people are involved in these processes, etc. So during the pre-implementation consulting stage, we identify key objectives and key project team players. We also plan the implementation project, and we assess general operational risks that can be also covered by the software implementation process. And once the pre-implementation consulting step is done, now we move to the actual implementation stage of the software. We also call it onboarding in the bigger term and the wider term. And usually we split the whole project on a particular steps and also phases of these projects. So on your slide, you can see that this is the general timeline of the implementation, standard implementation project. And actually, we stick to this timeline with every client. The only thing that differs from client to client is the timeline and actually timeframes. But again, this is the best approach that we can give you is implementation in 2 months, and usually we're planning our implementation or onboarding project for the period of 2 months. On your screen now, you can see that the red line presents the steps that are should be done on the client side, and the yellow one is the RigER team steps. So basically, it aligns with 5 bigger steps, like a configuration of the software. Then, if needed, we do the customization of the software when we put specific needs and details in the software according to your specific operations. Then we do a training of the configuration that we have set up for you with the data that we import for you as well. And all the print forms that would be changed, we also show you, and we train you how to utilize that in the most efficient way in the software. And then we transfer you to the stabilization stage or onboarding stage, when you start doing your operations in RigER in the testing modes or in the transition mode. Then we do a transition meeting when we identify any issues on the road or any particular suggestions or maybe additional improvements to your configuration. And after that, we move you to the support stage of the project when you start using RigER in the go live mode. And then you just receive your user support from our support technicians. During the whole implementation software project, we also have different phases because RigER system is, like we said, it's a big operations management system which combines different modules, add-ons, and features. And since there are a number of different modules, we usually suggest to implement them in the phases. So the module is a particular functionality in the system. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's a little bit smaller, but it does a particular thing and a particular function in the software. So we usually suggest to pick a few modules and combine it into one phase, which is usually constrained by timeline. It's from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So one phase can accommodate 1, 2, or maximum 3 modules that will be implemented in the same time. And every single module has its own structure, how we implement that. So because it may also involve some customization, but it will definitely have a setup and configuration of this module according to your specific needs. Then it will be a training on using this particular module, and then completion and transition stage when you start using your module, giving your feedback to us, and we polish everything, and then you can operate this module in the live mode. And now we are going to talk a little bit about the project management, how we do the projects from the practical standpoint. And I'm going to introduce you to Michael Pavlov. He's our project manager, and he will talk about this in a second.
Hello, everyone. So we do have a dedicated program management office, and we utilize an agile approach to project management and software development. Here you can see more of a high-level Gantt chart that directly corresponds to the project timeline you have seen earlier. It is a clear project breakdown into phases, stages, steps, and deliverables with weekly reports on the milestones and progress evaluation. Additionally, we do have a more detailed task management system that tracks individual contributions that have been assigned to both the RigER team and our clients' representatives. The main purpose of both is to ensure complete control of the project, transparency, and peace of mind for you and your business.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Michael. I would agree with you that the main purpose of the whole task management and like we said, project management operation is just to ensure that our clients understand clearly what's going to be done at one timelines and what are the next steps and next actions on the whole project timeline. Because sometimes there are lots of different steps and actions that should be performed, and some of people can be lost. But again, the purpose is just to give clear understanding and vision how we process the whole project. So when the implementation project is done and you're comfortable with using RigER, so you can operate in the live mode, meaning that you enter new jobs and all new documents in RigER software, and you completely switch from your previous program, then you are able to receive and to get our support, ongoing support, which is actually included in your licenses or charges. So, and you also have full access to self-learning online channels. We have pretty detailed knowledge base with explanation and description of most of the features in the software. That will explain you step by step with the slides, pictures, how to do what. Also, you have access to RigER Academy, when you can onboard your new employees and show them how to use software on the basic level. And then once they are comfortable with the general operations in the software, we can provide additional training to them on the extended functionality. And also, YouTube channel is a pretty popular source of information for our clients, because they can get recording of our webinars like we are doing right now, or they can see what is the new functionality in the system, what are the updates of the software, and some additional information about our company. We also provide a premium support package for additional fee, where you can pay some amount of money, and we can do the prioritized support to you if you need this. So it's a pretty useful thing for new clients when you in the transition process. So if you need this kind of option, please reach us out. And all our support channels are available in your software right away in the support tab. So you can access and support portal and knowledge base and all that I've mentioned previously. Also, you can send us an email from the software, or there is a phone number that you can reach us out anytime, and we'll provide a quality support. Just a few numbers about the past year activity on the support desk. So it's pretty intense, and we can say that our support desk is excellent, because it solves all the problems of our clients.
Okay, so thank you, Gleb, and thank you, Michael. So we're moving on to the next part of our presentation, which is going to be no less important than what we've just talked about. So it's keys to success. We know that implementing a system is very intimidating, or it can be rather intimidating task. But we're here to help. And there's a few there's a recipe, if you will, and some ideas and practices that we've developed and used throughout our implementation projects that help us to ensure that every implementation project is a success. So the key items here that I wanted to talk about are, in addition to the people on the left-hand side in the picture, there are happy customers of ours. So I want to focus why they became happy customers and what led them to be. So first is the leadership. So it is a big item, because we know that leaders of the organization, of any organization, are the ones that drive the change. So it's important to have the leaders on board and ensure that there's trust among the people in the organization from the leadership, and trust between us and the leaders of the organization that want to change the system. So the second thing that we need to make sure that we are aware of and keep an eye on, if you will, is the time. So time has its constraints when we do implement a project, and it's important to identify specific, and we ensure that we do that with you guys when we implement a project, that we set specific deadlines to accomplish the goal of implementing a system. So the third item that is very important, the champions. And it's important to know that the people, although the leadership is very important, because they sign off on the general guidance and the general direction of the project, champions are the people that actually are owning the system at the middle to the lower level of the organization. There's people that actually are in charge of having a system set up at the organization and knowing what each function is supposed to do in the system. So these are the go-to people, so to speak, that have to be involved, engaged throughout every process of the implementation. So we need to assign them, and that's what we do as part of the implementation project. So the third thing or the fourth rather thing is that we need to take action. So that's why we have the program management office at our organization. We have the project management methodology that includes the specific task management activities that we enforce and ensure that there is people that are taken on this task. So from small tasks, from small steps to big achievements, that's the main purpose of this whole line, if you will, to ensure that we are getting the tasks done and then the project gets moved forward towards a successful end. And the small wins is another important thing. So we take actions, but we need to understand that there are milestones through the implementation process that we need to both celebrate and acknowledge individual contributions of people. So we split the project into smaller phases, and in each phase we have the milestones. And as soon as we hit the milestone on the deadline or before the deadline, we need to make sure that we celebrate those, and it helps to motivate people to keep moving forward with the implementation project.
So I would add that we are following the company-wide approach while we are implementing software. It means that everyone should operate in the same system, having the same source of truth. And we stick to this approach pretty good, because we have a proven record of successful implementations following this approach. So this approach accommodates two main or big phases. First, we usually implement software for the office personnel, meaning that they're using RigER software on their desktop computers. Why we do that? Because desktop application allows you to perform all possible actions and all the functionalities available on the desktop application. But in the same time, if you prefer using RigER on the mobile applications for the field personnel usually, so they can install the application on their Apple devices, both iPhones and iPads, and also they're able to install RigER application to their Android devices. And but the only constraint here is just you should be aware of limited capabilities of the mobile application in terms of doing different actions in the software. So usually it's mainly to track employees' time and also creating new documents, put essential information in it, like to do the initial input into the documents, and then these documents can be approved by the dispatchers in the office, or accountants can generate invoices only on the desktop applications. So this is the two big phases approach when you start with the office and then you move everything to the field personnel. And as I said, field guys can enter new documents in the system, in the software, like quotes, or generating new tickets with services, with a quantity of services and a particular set of equipment for specific jobs. So, but also mobile applications have different roles. So depending on the responsibilities and purpose of employee using the software, we can suggest and we can recommend what kind of particular application these employees can use, again, depending on their permissions and purpose of the actions.
So the purpose of today's presentation was just to give you an idea that it should be an intimidating task to actually get on the implementation project of RigER in your organization and ensure that you can do that. And we're here to help you along the way. So when I wanted to wrap up, the main part of today's conversation is that what do we recommend, again, to make sure that you can do that and should not be afraid of taking on such a project. So small wins is the big thing. So we recognize what has to happen and we make sure that we follow the process. We do break down the implementation into the phases and the steps and the actions and tasks. So we move from the easy to complex, and then at the organizational level, we tackle each function and each role separately to make sure that we're not overwhelming the implementing team. So we start usually doing the implementation of the system and analyzing the processes at the office first, because they're the drivers of the organization information flow, so to speak. But then we make sure that the core processes get implemented first. Integration is always to follow, because you don't want to start with the sort of within a tail end of a system design. We start with the core processes and then ensure that everything else gets or follows the line. And we do implementations using the project with a phase-based approach. Again, it makes it all feasible, manageable, and we can keep track of every specific phase and make necessary adjustments along the way. So it saves the cost and it saves the time down the road. On this note, I want to know now, before we kind of wrap up completely, we have a few more slides, so hang in there with interesting information. But this is the time to ask a few questions if you have. So those of you who are on the call with us, either you're new or you're an existing customer, do feel free to ask us any questions.
Nikolai, the question that I see that came in is about the timelines or timeframes. So is there a average timeframe that the software usually has been implemented?
Okay, so you want me to take it on? Okay, so we do have a timeline. So our general timeline for the implementation, again, given that our methodology is based on phased approach and make sure that we emphasize small wins and move project along, is that we target to complete a project within 8 weeks time frame. And there is a reason for that, simply because we've done enough a number of projects to make sure that we can complete that. And that's our general timeline. Sometimes, depending on additional modules or different requirements or changed requirements for the project, we can extend that. But it just goes on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, good. I don't see any other questions on our list.
Let me just double check. There's another question that came in from Mary. So here's the question, and Mary asks, you've showed the project management timeline. How do you make sure that the clients follow along, are not falling off of the organized and planned project implementation plan?
Right, that's a good question. And actually, yeah, we have a established procedure that we usually have a weekly meetings or calls with clients. It's some kind of project progress update calls. So we discuss what have been done the last week, what will be done next week, where we are standing at, and what our problems and that's actually the purpose of this call, is just to discuss the current state of the things. So, and these calls keep everyone in the same loop, and everyone understands on what stage of the implementation project we are. So yeah, we usually do that. And even when we do the transition stage of the project, we still stay in touch with client during the weekly calls. So that helps us to move the project down the road and down the timeline and achieve the final goal.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions right now, and I think it's just because it's not a technical subject that we've had today. However, we welcome all the questions in the online and offline mode, so feel free to reach out, guys, to us at any time. So there's a few more slides, as I promised, that I wanted to share with you. So we are pretty big on engaging with clients face-to-face, and you can see that we are going to be present with a number of events this year. So the first one that is coming up actually next week or the week after the next one is going to be Doug Rockies. So we will be in Denver, and we'll be more than happy to see you at our booth. So you can see the details right here on the screen and the dates as well. So feel free, if you are there, to reach out to us or stop by and say hi. So we'll be more than happy to chat and show you what RigER is in action right there in the event while we are there. And yeah, so the next thing that we have, and before I move to that one, I just wanted to actually bring up a question. There's another question that came through. And the question is, how do you make sure that your clients use the system after the implementation? That's a good question. So before we move to that slide, I wanted Gleb to get your perspective. How do you make sure that they're using the system after the implementation? How do we ensure that it's not sitting there collecting digital dust, so to speak?
Right. So when we do all these steps and actions during our implementation projects, meaning we import the data, we configure the system, again, we show everything to our client. So we present what have been done in the system exactly. So we are not just saying that we've done that, but we are showing what is done and how it now reflects what should be achieved. So it's meaning that, for example, during the configuration stage of the project, when we configure the software with different features, visibility settings, permissions, etc., so we assess and analyze the client's sample jobs. So they are providing us with documents that we are inputting in the system, and we show how these documents will be processed once the users will be trained. Then when we do training on the live database. So we show the customers' data, so they are familiar with their equipment or service names, and they are doing their real things in the during the training in their database. So that allows us to put the client users in the work mode, and they start doing that by themselves.
I thank you, Gleb. Yes, I agree that this is key. So people are engaged throughout the implementation process. So it never is the case that the system is sitting on its own or is being implemented without people being involved in it. That's why we have the best practices in engaging from leaders to the champions. So the champions are those people actually that are ensuring that they know how to use the system. And that's why it's not sitting up idle and not being used. So another thing that we're using as part of our implementation is that we're setting up the reports. So the reports allow us to see actually the number of connections to the database and the use of it. So those reports in a form of in any format, I guess, in a form of a 1 or 2 pager can be sent to the management of the organization. That's why leadership is very important at the very beginning. So basically, every week or every month, leaders in the organization that are setting up the system actually receive the use of the system and who are the users, the key users of the system. So basically, there's monitoring capability that we set up depending on the company's preferences. So the training is a big thing. So we also have these through the support desks. We see what actually what kind of issues clients are having, and we are there quickly to catch up on what they need to be either retrained or trained again in the system to make sure that they are there. So basically, we have a number of activities and tools in our toolbox to ensure that whoever who's made a decision to make a change in the organization and set up a system are aware of how that change is being implemented. Okay, so thank you very much for the question, though. It was a very good one. And I wanted to get back to this slide. So next week, same time, but next week, we're having the annual user conference. So that's going to be a web event, as we usually do. Understand that everybody is busy, so you're more than welcome to attend and join the live session where we're going to be talking about what's coming new in RigER, what the year has been, the 2019 for us, and you'll learn about some of the stories of how RigER has been used by our clients. So we'll look forward to talking to you next week at the event, so feel free to join. You can always, again, if you're new to RigER and are now more curious about what it can do for you, feel free to go to the website and actually fill out a demo form, and we'll get a hold of you and actually schedule a live demo for you, whether in person or over the web. So feel free to reach out. And on that note, I wanted to thank everyone for participation today. It was an exciting topic. We're looking at having the 2020 to be one of the best years ever for the oilfield services and rentals companies. And we're here to help you anytime.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nikolai. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.